7-8 is just eating everybody's lunch. I think this might be a teachable moment. So, let me go through this so that you can understand it. We're looking at figuring out the bad debt expense using the allowance method for an entire set of accounts receivable. Now, it's very important to understand that accounts receivable is playing off of a percentage. The percentage is the actual balance that will be needed in the allowance account when you're finished. That percent is not the bad debts expense. So let's go through this step by step so we can get it all. Number one, you have to calculate you're looking to find the outstanding gross accounts receivable balance so that you can find the bad debts estimate. And from there, we will find the bad debts expense. So let's start at the top. You have a balance at the beginning of $63,000. You have credit sales of $575. That gives you a total of $638. You collected $557,400, and you wrote off one account of $2,600. So those have to be deducted from this overall available sales on credit. Gives you an outstanding of $78,000. Now, 4% of that is deemed to be bad. Now, that is the bad debt estimate for the accounts receivable. That's what the allowance balance should be. So now you go and you look at what's actually in the allowance account. That's a kind of a two-step phase here. So what we're looking at, it had a beginning balance of $1,400 credit. We wrote off a debit. We wrote off bad debts as a debit for $2,600. So this $2,200 right here is now the ending balance of the allowance account, and that's a debit balance. It's in the hole. That's a negative $1,200. So, if I want to get in a T account, picture this. I have an account that has a $1,200 debit, and I wanted to have a credit at the bottom of $3,120. First of all, I have to account for that debit, right? And then I can add the rest as a credit. So I think I said that wrong, so that's even more confusing. You're going to take the balance you need and add that $1,200 that it's in the hole. So if I were to make an entry, okay, and this is exactly what we're going to do, by adding those two, of $4,320 for the bad debts expense, because that's what it's got to be, and the allowance account would be credited for $4,320. So I have a negative number, and I'm going to add this $4,320 to it. So what do I end up doing? So what is the difference here? If I do a credit to that account, what will be my ending balance? The ending balance is going to be the $3,120. So that's a little bit confusing. So this is your bad debts expense. This is the adjustment needed in the account to bring the credit balance up to $3,120. The next one they wanted to know was net accounts receivable. What's the net of that? Well, the net, as it shows here, is accounts receivable $7,800 minus that $3,120, the allowance for the bad debts, because that's our balance in the bad debts. So our net becomes $7,488. This $4,320 has nothing to do with as a contra to that. That just gets it to the point where it needs to be. The next thing they asked then was receivables turnover. Well, that was kind of easy. We had $575. That was our net credit sales, right? and we're going to find the average net accounts receivable. So that's going to be, I believe they must have given us a 63 beginning number, minus the 1,400, plus the 7480 here, divided by 2. And that will give us 575,000 divided by 68,240 to give us 8.4. And that was kind of complicated. Probably the easiest way to have done this was to actually do T accounts and have you write that out. So I hope this helps. Give me a message if it doesn't, so we can go over it again. I'll try to find a different way of saying it. I do have a spreadsheet I just did. Let me see if I can find that. See if I can find it very quickly, and I'll pop that into it for you if I can find it. Yeah, here it is. So let me bring this over here. Here you go. Can you see this? See, it has a debit balance over here. I need to have a 3120 balance. The only way I can get that 3120 is to take these two and add them. So if I add 4320 to a negative 1200, I will end up with 3120. And here's the calculation. So this is D6 plus E6 equals 3120. And that's the balance we need to end up with in the allowance account. I hope that visual helps a bit. Okay. Message me if you have questions. Thank you.